Than some of the main ones, but let's find out who jumps in on a Sunday. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third session of the ACP-520 study guide, or study sessions, I should say. We got my good friend, Mr. King Bob Wen, in the house today. Thank you
Good
very
morning,
much.
good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in this world of ours.
Thank you again, Bob, for waking up so early and helping me stay accountable. We are going to pick this up. If you are new to this, if you're watching this for the first time, this is the third session. So you definitely want to check out the link down below so that you can get parts 1 and parts 2, which we covered. We're doing the ACP 520. We're going in order using the study guide. We've covered a good introduction section of giving you exam preparation tips. We have covered section 1-1, which was creating and managing an organization. Last time we did section 1-2, which was managing multiple sites and products. And today, if we can stay on track and keep my cough at bay, we're going to try to do the rest of section or chapter 1, which is 1.3, 1.4, and 1.5. A little optimistic here. I'm not sure, Bob. You know us how we like to go on rants. But let's see how this goes. All right. Any introductory things that you want to say, Bob, before we jump into the material?
So, those of you that are there, a key part of studying is making sure that you actually register for the exam. We'll tell you right now that if you register or if you try to go for a test center, or if you even if you try and take this exam at home using the online proctoring, those slots fill up. So we really want to emphasize that you do want to, as soon as you pick up your course, you'll find that there's a voucher code attached. That's what your $100 or $249 pay for.
Did it go up in price?
It hasn't gone up in price
Just to 100
yet.
Yeah, so don't sit on that.
Yeah, so exactly. Don't sit on it. It's a 90-day code. So in other words, it's effective for 90 days. And you really want to make sure that you get the slot that you want at the test center that you want, or if you're going to do it at home online, you get the slot that you want. So that's a key thing.
In the chat here, we have a question about the Discord. My live streams it's been a while. It's been like last summer, 22. We had a Discord here that we had set up. I do plan on bringing those back. I got some big plans for starting January 23rd, 2024. And so we are definitely going to be bringing back the Discord server so that people can jump in. So stay tuned for that. All right, Bob, so that we can actually finish on time and hopefully get back to our lives. Let's just jump into it.
Let's do it.
All right. So here we are. This is the free guide, the exam topics PDF that Atlassian gives you. And as always, again, if you're watching for the first time, we're going to be looking at this, looking at Atlassian's documentation, and most importantly, we're going to go and try it inside of the Atlassian tool itself. And then we're going to wrap up by looking at some highlights from the course that you get when you take the exam. So a lot to cover here. So let's just jump into it. We're going to start off with section 1.3, managing product access. So we're going to be covering understand the available methods to grant product access, understand the site access settings that control how users get access to your site, configure approved domains, configure invitation links, and configure user invites. So let's jump into the first link. We're going to be looking at how to specify how users get access to your site. And so this is an interesting thing, right? So adding users in Jira, it can be easy until it's hard, in my opinion. And I think if you're an organization who just has, maybe a dozen or a couple dozen users, I think it's very trivial. I think where it gets a little bit harder, and I don't even want to say the word harder, but where it gets more involved, right? You have to think through it a little bit more, is when you're like in a bigger 2, 3, 500 person company, 500 plus, where you gotta do this a lot. So with that said, the very first article we have here, right, is so this page covers the settings that we're going to be looking at. And so in the Atlassian portal, there's going to be a user access setting, and we're going to be talking about approved domains, user invites, and invitation links. Now, I want to talk about approved domains because this one gets me. There's a question on this that, well, the answer here was in, let me rephrase. There was a question that we did on the Jira Life last week, right? And talking about a shared approved domain confused me, right? Is the approved domain site specific, or is it blanketed across all the organizations? So we're gonna be exploring that today. We're gonna be taking a deeper look into that, and we're gonna prove the answer, right? That said that domains are managed at the site level, I believe is what I saw. But we'll take a look at that. So okay, so what's an approved domain? So this is really, really tricky. And what happens is when you add a user, okay, and I'm just gonna pull up my Jira here so we can actually just jump into it real quick, right? So when you and give me a second, folks. I think I may need to change emails. I do. 1 second while I take this offline here and change accounts.
So when we talk about domains, all right, it's a big bad internety word, right? Basically, when we talk about domains here, we are looking specifically at email. So in other words, Alex at apetech.me. Apetech.me is the domain. All right. And everything in the Atlassian organization is going off of email. Your usernames, your Atlassian accounts, they're all based on your email account. And so it's going to be looking at that whatever is after the @ sign of your email. And so you can, as Alex is going to show, when we talk about approved domains, we can specify which of those parts of that email address, the apetech.me, if that can be allowed to get access to the organization to claim a product, and whether or not that requires approval from an organization admin.
Correct. Yeah. And so sorry about that, man. So many freaking Atlassian IDs. I had to pick the right one. But yeah, really, really good point. But Bob, so correct me if I'm wrong, because I was not 100% paying attention because I'm over here struggling. But my understanding is when I go to invite a user, so if I'm back on the directory side and I click on invite user, right, I'm going to put in, Bob at bobsamazing.com. Atlassian, for my convenience, will automatically add that domain as my approved, or at least will ask me if I want to add it as an approved domain. And then we can, it'll just take care of it for you.
Yes, that is one way that you could specify the approved domain. The other one is if you go into that user access things right there on that tab, and you see that big blue add domain button, you can just add
People or domain.
any domain that you want. So if you need to get Alex at or if you're going to have multiple people from bobisamazing.com, you can just set up the domain, and that would be your approved domain.
Now, I'm not a big fan of the any domain, because this means that literally anybody on the internet can come in here.
Actually, it's almost anybody.
Almost anybody.
That's the catch-all. All right. So you can specify domains by clicking on that blue add domain button and specifying the domain, like bobisawesome.com. Any domain is the catch-all. So anything else, and in that anything else, you can edit the settings for any other non-public domain. All right. And so a non-public domain, what that refers to is that Atlassian will look at the, again, a domain, that thing that follows the @ sign. It's going to look at those domains that are not public email mailboxes. In other words, it will not look at yahoo.com. It will not look at gmail.com. It will not look at hotmail.com. So it's because it assumes that those are public domain addresses. But it
Correct.
will look at things like apetech.me, thejiraguy.com. If you don't have it
Teamblog.com.
added, but there are settings for so anything else that isn't specified. There are settings for that any domain, and you can even edit those settings by pressing on that edit link.
But in general, though, as a company, I always edit this any domain because, especially when you're like in a corporation, you
Yeah.
really only want your company's domain here.
Right.
Because if you have anybody else, you're asking yourself for some, having
Right.
to do some explaining to your cybersecurity team.
Exactly. So so the important thing here is you would add your company's domain through the add domain button, and then you would edit the settings on the any domain so that it would need approval through the organization admin, and you want to verify what type of access to the products
Correct. Which we're
gonna.
gonna get to here in a second.
Yeah.
But a couple of pro level tips here for the act, not the exam, but for being an admin. When you add your first users, like specifically even like yourself, if you're using your company email, I believe your email then should show up in here at least, right? Like, or at least when you do your first invite and it's like at mycompany.com, it's gonna prompt you, do you wanna set up so that anybody from mycompany.com can automatically add themselves? It'll be in here. So you won't have to necessarily click on the add domain. But I also want you to be careful, right? If you ever invite like a third-party contractor or just another team, it's also going to prompt you. And so if you're not careful, this list can get rather long here. And you want to be mindful of every time you do an invite, that is a different way of getting a domain added into here. And so you don't only have to just click on this button, right? So there's a couple of different ways, and one of them is a little sneaky. So just be careful with that sneaky one.
Yep.
Now, what happens when we have this domain, right? What does this approved domains thing actually mean? And I think Bob explained it a little bit, right? We got a couple of settings here. So for all the products within this org, you're going to see that I have, and it's not even within this org. It's going to be, no, it is definitely within this org. So as you can see here, within this org, I have the different products. And so I have a couple of products here. I have a Confluence under ACP-520, a JSM under ACP-520, and a Jira software under ACP-520. So that's one site. And then you'll notice that I have a different site still within the same org, but I have a different site called ACP-APEXstudy.atlassian.net. And so for every product here under your org, you're going to be able to set up what role and if they require admin approval. Now, this is really, really critical that you do this because if you don't, if you basically either don't have this check mark, right? If these are turned off, then you better have some deep pockets, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is where, because when you it basically doesn't or it can give you a notification that's at the bottom part, but it's less of a control into what prospective users get product access. And whenever we're talking product access, think get a license.
Money.
Yes.
So this setting right here, the way I have it set up right now, is going to cost your organization a ton of money if you are not careful. Because literally if anybody ever gets, like, somebody shares a Jira ticket to somebody else, they're going to be able to click on it. They might not be able to access the ticket itself, but they'll be able to, get into the site. And because they're an approved domain, right? Their .com is company.com is part of the approved ones, the ones that we just clicked on here. They're going to get all these licenses like that, instantaneous.
Right.
Just for having that email. And so you lose control as an admin, right? but it's convenient because then anybody in your company can jump in. But if you have a set license number, or you're trying to keep that license count under a specific budget, this is one way to get called to the principal's office real quickly.
Yeah.
So what should you do here, right? So I'm trying to hit this from a multifaceted angles right here, because not only do we want to know what each of these do, but I'm also trying to give you some good business experience. Just because I think part of Bob, and correct me if I'm wrong, right? But part of the ACP, right, is not just knowing the facts, but it's knowing the impact of these items. So
Absolutely.
it's important for us to kind of tell you the business justifications of like, what does this checkbox actually do, right? Because it does something, right? It obviously admin approval. We all can read English. It means that an admin approves, but more importantly, it means that you gain some control. You gain some ability to now say, hey, yes, I'm going to open it up so people from my domain can request access, but I'm still, the buck ends with me, right? Like I can still make the call and say, I don't think this individual needs a license, and I don't think I should add them to, start paying for them. So my safeguard is to always make sure that these admin approvals are required. Even if your company has like unlimited licenses for every user, I think you should still vet everybody, because you never know when somebody might have 2 emails. You never know when somebody might, invite the whole different department that you hadn't even thought about, right? Like that's all possible, right? And so having these admin approvals always at least gives you that notification, especially when you have this only when users need admin approval set, and you'll be able to vet them and be able to check for them. Any thoughts there, Bob?
Yeah. I always like it so that for the any domain, that is the most lockdown. So that requires the admin approval. The product role that you want to give them is either minimal or
none?
or doesn't require a license. So possibly like
We'll look at
in
this one.
Confluence, there'd be guest access, and Jira Service Management would be customer. The ones where you can be a little more judicious would probably be your company domain. So make sure that in the approved domains, your company domain is there, and then you can and the modal for any domain is going to look like the one that we're showing right here. It's going to have the view of the products, prospective product roles, and whether or not admin approval is required.
Yeah. So let's cover some basics here, right? So if your product role is none, if I set these to none, then that means literally nothing's going to happen. Like they're not going to get a license at all. And I don't even think that I don't think it'll do anything, right? Like they wouldn't even be able to get to your juras at all. Like there's nothing, right? And so at a minimum, right? Like let's just say that you're a pretty big company and you're like, hey, well, I want to control my users that get a license, but maybe from a JSM perspective, I want to give anybody a customer license so that they can submit requests via the portal and whatnot. So this right here, I'd be comfortable with, right? Because for anybody in your company, you're not paying licenses, but they now have the added convenience of just automatically being a customer for JSM.
Yes.
Now keep in mind that this whole any domain is so that you as an admin, it becomes like a passive administration, right? You're basically telling Jira, hey, if a member belongs to this domain and they try to get to my Jira, given this criteria that I have set here, give them that automatically. That's just the passiveness. You can and we'll talk about this through like Atlassian Access, and then also through like, an active user management. You still have the ability to give these roles on a case-by-case basis where you're actually monitoring and doing the work. This is just so that Jira takes care of it for you while you're sleeping. I mean, I'll pause if I ever say controversial things so that Bob can come in and correct me.
Nope. I will always kind of jump up and save you from yourself, Alex. That's what I do.
Yeah. So my opinion, right? If you are going to go down this like any domain route, or even with your company domain, I think it's a really good practice to only leave the customer, in my opinion, because I like to control the rest of it. Or most companies are going to use Atlassian Access, which again, we're going to talk about later, which that comes with its own product access requirements anyways. So I like to do it like this, just at a minimum. because it's not so restrictive that nobody gets anything, but it's allowable enough that you're not going to pay any extra licenses. You are getting some convenience of, your JSM portals are going to work correctly, but you're not also going to get hit with a very big bill. So this is what I would leave personally. But again, it's up to you. If you're like, hey, for my company, we already have approval, everybody can get a license. Well, guess what? You're going to give a user to this one, user to this one, user to this one. And that means you're going to give licenses for every one of these products. Now, one little cool thing here. This is definitely probably not on the test, but just again, as an admin, you should know this. Look at these URLs for Jira software. This is ACP-520 APTEC, ACP APTEC study. If I do this, right, I am now going to pay 2 times for 2 Jira softwares for that same user. So you just doubled your bill for that individual for this particular product. So again, be very, very careful, because this is a really, really easy way to get some unexpected higher than expected bills from Atlassian,
Yep.
right? So be careful with that, right? Because it's not the best
Yep.
for your wallet. Convenient if you have unlimited money, but let me know if you guys are hiring. All right, so that takes care of the approved domain section. Let's go back to here, see if there's anything else, right? So essentially, again, just knowing, go to Atlassian.com, go to products we just talked about, add your domain, right? This is going to be your .com for your company. Your emails typically is the easiest way to look at that. Then we have the product roles, right? So none is going to assign no product role, which means the user with the approved domain won't be able to access that product, which in some cases could be good. User, right? User basically consumes a license. So whenever you see user, think $ or think license. So when you assign this user role, the product is going to, when they log in, they're going to basically, be able to get in there with that approved domain. And then customer is going to assign the role so be able to use that JSM. They call it the help center. I call it the portal. Potato, in my opinion, but the help center or the portals. The admin approval, again, I honestly, as a best practice, check it. I think it's better to double check these than to just let it be open. Unchecked basically means that they'll be able to come in. They'll just exist in the morning when you log in. On the notifications, I do want you to be careful with this, because it can get really annoying. At a minimum, I would say when users get access, you should have that one selected, because if you're gonna not do the approval required, it's still a good idea for you to have some visibility to the sheer number of people that are just self-adding themselves, right? Because another thing that happens is your buddies, right? Your existing licensed users, they're gonna assign tickets to somebody else. And when they do that, if they're not in Jira, Jira's conveniently gonna pop up in the UI, invite them, right? So it's not something that you can control, right? So even other people can send invitations, and we'll talk about this again in this couple minutes here, right? But you want to be very careful, because if you have a good Samaritan on your team that's just being the Oprah of Jira licenses, they're just going to hand them out like candy, and there's nothing you can do if you don't set these things up correctly, right? So if you have, hey, give them a license and no admin approval required, guess what? Somebody's going to find that little loophole, and your bill's going to be 2, 3, 5, 10x what you were expecting, because again, you set up that setting that way. So I like to, if you are going to open it up, I like to do this when users get access, send me an email, because then you'll see a flood of emails come through your inbox of everybody that just got added on automatically because somebody sent an invite or they just have an approved domain.
So I'm gonna kind of point the obvious trade-off and play a devil's advocate here, and that is, do you want an email every time somebody becomes a JSM customer? And so that's where you may want to look at option B. Set it up that anytime that they're requesting a user level access, they need to occupy a license. You set it up that has to go through admin approval, and then you get the notification for admin approval.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is why option B is always the option that I go with, right? I'm only going to get the notifications when I need to take action. That way I don't get bombarded or flooded with emails either. So
yeah,
that's what the notify organs are, right? So users with approved domains must create an Atlassian account. We'll talk about this, I think, in a different section, because your Atlassian account, very, very important. Can view your products from a specific join product location, such as start.atlassian.com. Do we ever get to talk about start.atlassian.com?
Not so much from within the context of the course, but it's kind of like one of those entry level user type things. If you're on anytime that you're on cloud, you often may want to find out what products you do have access to. And a
Yeah.
good place to start is start.atlassian.com.
Yeah, if you can, so people are creatures of habit from what I've observed over my last 7 years, right? People like to bookmark their Juras, and they'll usually get a ticket, right? And they'll put the little Chrome bookmark, Firefox bookmark, and they'll always know which Jira to go to. And if they're even like, if, I don't want to use the word paranoid, but if they're more cautious, they'll even bookmark the board, right? So they always just go straight to that same board every single time. They don't care about anything else. But again, because these settings can be automated by your admins, it is very much possible that you have access to more things that you may know. And going to start.atlassian.com is a great way for you to find out all the different products that are in your tied to your account. And so, especially if you're a big enterprise that has a lot of Jiras, a lot of Confluences, you may want to go to start.atlassian.com and take a look there. Right. Can join your selected products with or without an invitation. Must verify their account every 6 months. This is interesting. I haven't seen this before.
I haven't seen it before either, but
Must verify their account every 6 months. What does that mean? Because there is a verified, but I thought that was tied to the Atlassian Access bit. Like, do you know
no,
how there's a verified account?
I think I think it's the Atlassian account as a whole.
So just
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah, it might. I'm so active in Jira that, that I've never hit this.
I've
this
never hit it either.
we're so active but I will tell you that if you don't log in, right, like if you don't use your Jira, like Atlassian is pretty good about sending you an email telling you like, hey, here's a little red flag you might want to take care of. And so apparently, if you don't log in every 6 months, I would suspect that Atlassian sends you some sort of notification.
Yep.
Customers on approved domains, right? They'll also need. So this is interesting too, right? So this is one piece that I tell my teams all the time, which is, hey, for your JSM, and I know that this is changing a little bit in the Atlassian world, but for your JSM, your customers, they need an Atlassian ID. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter where there are, like what their email is. That email does need to be registered with Atlassian, which then makes it an Atlassian ID. Then they can access your help desk, which I think is a good thing, right? Because it keeps bots at bay versus having literally anybody on the internet be able to submit tickets on your portal. So I think this is a good thing. There are ways around it. It's a little bit more of an advanced thing, but definitely not in the scope for this course. But in general, I think this is a really good thing that your Atlassian account has to be registered, or your customer's email must be registered before you get in here. And yeah. So configure users with non-public domain. So any domain, I think Bob, we were talking about this earlier, right? With this
Yep.
whole Google and
This was the
iCloud.
whole any domains.
So any domain features allows you to decide how users with non-public domains access your product. So a non-public or private email domain is hosted by a private server and is more secure than a public domain. Examples of public domains are Outlook, Gmail, something like that, right?
Yeah.
So email domains are from private companies are considered private domains. Examples are like Sony.com, Atlassian.com, Samsung.com.
Yeah. Or bobisawesome.com.
Yeah. You might use this feature to make it easier for your users with private email. Again, so I think we covered all of this here. I don't know that we have to do anything. It's a lot of the repeat of what we just talked about. But let's talk about user invites for a second here. I think this is a great big part that we were kind of alluding to earlier, right?
This is the more common way of getting invitations, right? Either an admin or another user invites somebody else to have access to a product.
Yep. And so we're still in the user access settings, but instead of approved domains, we're scooting our way over to user invites here, and we'll take it from here. So go ahead, Bob.
So basically from here, you can as you see here, you have a list of all of your products on all of your sites. That's why there's you'll see multiple Jira administrations, multiple Jira softwares, because Alex has Jira software in 2 sites, right? Now,
Correct.
for any type of user invite, you as an admin can specify whether it requires admin approval, or if he clicks on the drop down, you'll see the options that an organization admin can do with any sort of user invite. You can invite anyone. In other words, no no admin approval. You can tie this in with approved domains. If the user invite is to somebody in the approved domain, that can go through without admin approval.
Yes, I think you said this earlier, right? So this is the opposite side of the same coin, because approved domains kind of handles it passively from a, hey, if you identify with this .com email address, you're good, right? You're in. But now this side is like, okay, so let's just say that we're not doing that 100%, but we want to give a little bit more, you can have a little bit more control when somebody expresses interest in inviting somebody versus, when they come in. So they complement each other, right? So this is like anybody in your team and your admin can send invites. Once those invites are sent and the person clicks on that invite, what happens? And that's controlled by the approved domains, kind of, mostly.
Yep.
So sorry, Bob, keep going.
And then the third one is the one that's kind of the default required admin approval. That allows only access requests. And then the fourth one is don't allow invites. Just completely shut it down.
Yeah. So should we talk about these in a little bit more detail, or do you think that was enough?
I think that was
Okay.
I think that was enough. Those
So
are kind of the four options.
from a business perspective, right? What do these mean? So invite anyone, right? That means that literally anybody in Confluence or whatever product you pick here, right, is going to be able to invite anybody, right? And so as Bob was saying, right, like literally from any domain, right?
Mhm.
It's just anybody can be added. This is a great way to either upset a lot of people when they can't actually get in because the approved domain is not there, or it's a great way to, again, balloon your bill, because if you give, like, what's that saying? If you give somebody an inch, they'll take a mile or something like that, right? You just never know when you're gonna have that one person on your team that is like responsible for like 300 contractors, and all of a sudden you just got 300 contractors added into your Jira, right? And so if you leave this open, invite anyone, then that means that anybody in your company can send 300 invites to 300 contractors, and at $15 a pop, it's going to be an expensive bill for you next month. So that's a little extreme, right? That's a little bit too much. You can limit it to maybe invite approved domains, right? So now this goes hand in hand with our approved domains from before, right? This is now going to make sure that your company domain's there. And now the rules of engagement that we defined, right? So if we were to add like Bob is awesome.com, whatever we define here, that's what they get access to, right? So the invite will be able to be sent, but you have to live on bobisawesome.com, which, if you're looking at the two options, this is the better option, right? Inviting with the approved domain, I think, is much more safer, because if you invite anyone, you're literally opening it up to the internet. Again, non-public domains, but it's dangerous. This one right here is, at least, it's still bad, in my opinion. It's still bad in my opinion, but at least the fire is controlled within the people that you've already kind of blessed a little bit more. So if you want it open, this is the one I would do as a minimum. I think a little bit safer from the cybersecurity perspective as well. Require admin approval. I think this is the default. This is the one that you should leave, right? Because it's this whole trust by verify, right? I'm going to trust that my team has the autonomy to invite anybody, but I'm still going to be the one that looks at it and says yes or no. Right. And then the worst case scenario is don't allow the invites, which, again, if your company is really, really strict on cybersecurity, if your company is really, really strict on budgets, then that's what you're going to want, because you don't want your team giving you surprise bills at the end of the month. So yeah, that's kind of like the business side to think about it. So going back over here, right? This basically just walks you through what those mean. You can restrict it as we just explained. We have a customizable message here. This is, did I see this? I didn't see this here.
Didn't see that either, but
It might have been a thing that used to be there, but it's not there anymore. I do know that when you invite somebody from, yeah, I'm not seeing it.
no.
I love this case when, the The Atlassian instructions don't always
So
match.
this is actually kind of an important thing to bring up, and I don't remember if we've brought it up in previous live sessions, and that is that you have to remember that the course and exam may be different than the UI. There might be subtle changes because on cloud they're making changes all the time.
Yep.
Even to the UI.
So
So when
we'll
in
take a look.
doubt,
Yeah, we'll take a look at the
go to
exam
the
in a
course.
second. But yeah, go to the official course that is given to you when you buy the certification. So we'll circle back to this. So make sure you remember. But as a good rule of thumb, as Bob was saying, I'd learned this. I'd have this in a little piece of my memory cells there,
Yeah.
even though it's not possible anymore. This kind of explains everything we just discussed in detail. And so now let's just jump over to the last item, which is invitation links. And
Okay.
again, we're
I
still
know
back in Norway. We're
I
making our
already
way
can
downtown.
I already know for a fact Alex is going to just hate this. He's going to detest it with every fiber
We'll
of his
start off.
being. You are. I already know this. Okay.
I think that again, from an Atlassian perspective, this makes perfect sense. Convenience, happy customer, more money. As an administrator that has a budget, no, no, and no. But those are my 2 cents. What do you think, Bob?
I think it allows for a certain amount of flexibility, and sometimes when you look at the requirements, sometimes this might be just what you need, right? If the requirements are that you allow this, you control the whole, so to speak, right? It is up for a certain period of time. Let me back up by saying what an invitation link is,
Yeah, let's
right?
define that.
All right. So, what you can do is an organization admin can enable an invitation link, and you'll see that Alex has enabled it for Jira Software, and right below it is a URL. If you copy that URL and send it to other people, they can click on that URL and they can gain access without admin approval.
Even if you have admin approval configured.
Correct. Even if on the other ones you have admin approval configured, this allows you to bypass it. Now, the links are good for 30 days or when Alex disables that that button, then the link is no longer
Yeah,
valid.
jump in when you can. I don't
Basically.
like it, but I can see the value in it. I can see like maybe onboarding for the first time, but then I still maybe I'm just a bad admin. Maybe I'm a
Well,
paranoid admin.
you have a certain way of thinking through things, and that's perfectly fine and perfectly valid. But
Some companies just don't care.
uh, but what the exam is going to what the exam is really going to test out is, given these set of requirements,
The
what approach
scenario.
is best.
Yeah. So
So
yeah, so if you're in, yeah, so I think a good question would be like, hey, you're in a situation where you want to invite folks, your site requires admin approval. What's the way to send an invite without and
without
bypass
admin
it?
approval
Yeah,
for
bypass.
a limited period of time.
Yeah. And so that would be this.
Mhm.
Oh, cool. So that's what that is. And again, this walks you through the steps there. So that covers, we finished the tab. It only took 39 minutes. I think a lot of this is going to be repeat though, right? So I did click on the rest of these, right? So as we go down, I had clicked on specify how users get access. So now we're going to go to approved domains. I don't think we have to re-talk about this because we talked about what approved domains are in pretty detail. And it's the same article, it's just different sections of it. So we're still the same here. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think we're good. We covered all of these items here.
We are
Did we
good.
finish 1.3?
We are done with 1.3.
Okay, so let's jump into the course here. And we demoed everything in Jira, so we met that requirement. So let's just go through the course here, and Atlassian hasn't said anything, so I'm just gonna, pull a little bit more back. and let's see what they say. But let's talk about what I'll just skim through this, right? Obviously, I want you when you take the exam, you have it, you get it anyways, right? So product roles, this section will explain kind of what the different product roles are. Again, remember, user is going to be a licensed person. Your product admin is going to be, the person that can do the administration. Keep in mind that in Confluence, when we're looking at it from let's see, where are we at? I got to close out some of these. Keep in mind that when we're looking at it from a product perspective here, I'm just going to go in here for Confluence. Um, there, it's not showing up here, but there is a product role for Confluence admin, right? So you
Yes.
can give that. Jira itself, and again, I'm looking at it the wrong place. Let's go over here to
Yeah.
direct.
Go to the directory, go to users, and
Let's go to. I think it's under products. No.
it can
Yeah.
be under there too.
Yeah. Here we go. So when you're doing, no, it's still not here. I gotta invite somebody. I think it's under the invite directory, invite users. Here we go. So when you go to Confluence, when you're gonna give somebody a product role from Confluence, you can give them the product admin at the Confluence level, right? Or they can just make them a user, which gives them a license. On the Jira software side, because there's multiple Jiras, you got Jira software, Jira service management, Jira work management, Jira product discovery. Rather than doing this 4 times, because let's face it, nobody's got. If you got the money to have Jira align, you're probably not taking this ACP, right? But anyways, because all the Jiras basically are bundled together, your Jira software, you're only gonna pick if they either have a license or not. Independently, you're gonna manage if they become an admin or not, right? Because again, they're an admin for a group of products versus Confluence. It's just one Confluence type of product. So keep that in mind there. And so
Right.
that's kind of what,
We talked about this before. When you
right.
add a Jira product, you actually get quote unquote 2 products. One is whatever Jira product you chose, Jira software, Jira service management, Jira work management. And then the second one is the pseudo product
Yeah.
meant for administration, Jira administration. So when you have multiple Jiras on the same site, the administration of those Jira products goes through that Jira administration pseudo product.
Yep. And then we have guests, which is a Confluence only thing. So it's basically like the customer in JSM, but for Confluence. So know that exists. Which product roles do you have? So you can flip these over, right? It'll tell you what this is important, right? I think I've seen these in sample questions where you need to know what kind of roles, which kind of product roles exist for each one of these products. So definitely memorize these 3 items here. You're going to want to know that. Product access groups. So I think we get to talk about, we
We
didn't talk
talk
about
about
that
that
yet.
later on in kind of the second module, module 2.
Yeah, module 2.
But understand that product access as well as specific the roles that that Alex just talked about, user versus product admin versus customer versus guest. Those are governed by your membership in specific groups, and those groups are called product access groups.
So make sure you subscribe and make sure you come back because we will be covering that when we go to section 2.
Yep.
Okay. And then to just expand, some of these product roles are always granted to groups, not individual users. So that's very key, right? So the role, that's one thing that we kind of touched on one of the earlier videos, right? But when you're given a product role like that user that we were looking at earlier, it's under the hood and it's not very obvious at first. But when you add a user here and I grant somebody a user role, what I'm actually doing is I'm putting them, and I can show you with Bob, I'm putting them into a group, and that group is going to have access to that specific product. So again, not very, very obvious at the beginning, but just know that when we do jump over to section 2, we're going to very intimately talk about how these groups are associated to that product access, because that is very, very critical. Very, 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 very important that you know that. Each product role for a product must have at least one default access group. Again, we're going to talk, I don't know why this is in this section, but this is very important. Know that when we look at these groups, and we kind of saw this earlier, right? When I'm in the products and I click on Jira software and I click on this manage product, notice that I have groups, and notice that these things have a default group checkbox, and these two are there's 2 of them here, right? And so that means that when I give somebody a user, like I do the drop down for user for that individual, they're automatically going to be added to whatever the default group is here
for
okay,
that role.
for that role, which in this case is going to be Jira software users, right? Which makes sense. I wouldn't mess too much with this. I think if you're a small company, this is fine because it's very explicit, right? If you're going to give a Confluence license to somebody, guess what? They're going to be put in the Confluence users group. If you're going to give somebody a Jira license, they're going to be put in the Jira users group. If you're going to give somebody a JSM license, they're going to be in the Jira service management users group. So I think that's pretty clear. I wouldn't mess with it, but I know a lot of companies like to have a lot more control. And
Yeah.
so if you want to, you can change the default group, right? You can make new groups and then change things around. But
You actually can have multiple default access groups
as I can
for
see
the same role. And what will and just to kind of and yes, I'm going to repeat this again when we talk about it in module 2. When you set somebody to that role, it's going to add that person to both default access groups.
Yeah. And one thing to note is that, again, that the instructions were saying basically you have to at a minimum have one. You can't have none. So know that that's a fact. And the other fact that you should know is that if you bring in a managed group through like your SSO provider through Okta, again, a little bit more advanced, we'll talk about it later. But if you are bringing in a group that is being pushed in through your Active Directory and is being managed here with Jira, so you have that handshake, that group, that managed group, cannot be the only group, and I don't even think it could be the default group, in my understanding.
Yeah, I don't
We'll
quite
have to check
remember,
it.
but yeah.
I'll have to check it, but I'm pretty sure that for sure you have to have a non-managed group in here, right? That's a requirement. But I don't think that you can make you might be able to. I don't think you can though. I'm pretty sure you can. We'll double check. We'll come back. We'll have an answer for you by the next live stream. But I'm pretty sure that if it has a little lock, because the group will have a little lock on it, I don't think it could be a default group, and I know it can't be the only group there either. So you have to have one of these out of the box Jira groups in there. So just your mileage may vary there. Additional groups can be created, right? Oh, here it is. So maybe we just keep reading. We will be able to answer our question here. Additional groups may be created, but they're not default groups, right? So as you can see, and here we have another group called the org admins, but they're not the default, at least by default. I can go crazy and create 20 more groups, but they won't be the default group either unless you do something. A single group may grant multiple product roles. So yeah, this is definitely true, right? So you can put a group and put them in, the product roles for a bunch of different products. You get to go there. And multiple groups grant the same role. So 4 groups may grant user products role for Confluence on this. So this is interesting, right? So the way to describe this is you can, well, let me show you with an example, right? As you can see here, I can let's just go crazy here, Bob. Let's make a group. Well, actually, so I have a demo ACP group, right? So we're gonna do Bob's group. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my products. I'm just going to go to Jira Software here. I'm going to go to Manage, right? And I'm going to add a couple of groups. I'm going to add Bob's group, and I'm going to add this demo ACP one that I have here. I'm just going to give him the user license. Okay. So watch how I have a bunch of groups here, right? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups in here. It is possible for me to go over to Mr. Bob and stick Bob in every one of those groups. So I can put him in Bob's group. I can put him in the DC, right? And notice that they all say one product if and when this thing decides. There it is. So once this thing refreshes, right? Notice how they all say one product, but they're all the same product. And so for the most case, right? This is all the same product, right? So all this is saying is that you can belong to multiple groups, and all those groups are going to point you all to that same product.
Yes.
And so there's no what's the right word I'm looking for?
You're not double consuming licenses.
Yeah, correct. That's a good way to look at it, right? Like it doesn't hurt, right? The extra-ness doesn't hurt.
Right.
And it doesn't help you either. So it's messy in my opinion, right? As a Jira admin, I want to control this a little bit more because now you have multiple people and multiple groups that, in my opinion, groups are important. They serve a purpose. And so doing that, it's messy in my opinion. It's sometimes necessary. It just depends on the user. But just know that again, multiple groups can be the same role. So that's what
Right.
that means there.
So just to do a quick point on the previous one about a group could grant multiple product roles, that means that you could have the Confluence users group
Oh, let's do it right
also
now.
grant
Well, let's do
Jira
Bob's group.
access.
Let's do Bob's group, right? So we can put somebody from Bob's group. I can come over to Confluence over here, and I'm going to add a group, and I'm going to bring Bob's group and give him user as well. And watch what happens when I go over to Bob's group now, right? So back over here, and I'm going to Bob. Bob's going to be in Bob's group, but notice that it now doesn't say 1, it now says 2. So by me putting Bob into Bob's group, I don't have to manually go to Jira and manually go to Confluence. Now it automatically happens for both.
Right. Right. And so you really have to be careful with group names, because sometimes if you grant product access to more than one, the Confluence users group may somehow magically grant access to Jira as well, because you can do that.
Yeah, it can be misleading. So yeah, be careful. Be very,
Right.
very careful. Okay.
Moving on, right?
Yeah, moving on. As you can probably now appreciate, product access is quite complex, so hire an expert. Not sponsored by Release Team, but my good friends over at Release Team can definitely, if you're looking at all this and you're like, holy moly, there are professionals in the Atlassian community, Release Team being one of them, that can definitely help you out with navigate through these trenches. And also yours truly, but not yet. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
All right. Woozlemania organization. Okay, so I don't know that we need to do any of this. Invite user features we talked about. I think we covered all that. Meet Anna. Whoa, that did not do. I thought that was gonna flip
That
on me.
is definitely one way to meet Anna, I suppose.
I thought that card was gonna give me some additional information because I met Anna, but yeah, I was not expecting Anna to become so big there. The org admin invites Anna to the user role for Confluence. Anna's added to 2 groups. She will not be at, yeah. So read through this again. I think this is more in the details, but what I will say about all this, right, is everything in here is fair game for the exam. So I'm definitely skimming through it, mainly because we covered the big important things. But these are these details that you definitely want to read through a little bit more intimately as you're preparing for the exam.
Yep.
Because these little check marks here, right? Like this is kind of where Atlassian these are the gotchas, I think, in my opinion. Right. So let's continue and so we talked about approved domains already. We covered all this again. Let's expand all this. It kind of walks you through everything we just talked about there. So nothing standing out from my perspective. We covered the user invites. We covered about what all these do. We covered each one of these items. So that's all good. This right here, right? So a few other details about invitation links, mainly because I don't use invitation links. So I'm going to spend a second here because it's not something that I use. But links should only be shared with people you trust. Why? Because this is the only user access setting that never requires an admin approval. Again, as an admin, I don't know why I would ever turn this on, but that's neither here nor there. Sorry. Do invitation links expire? Absolutely, 30 days. And can an org admin disable a link if needed? And absolutely, we covered all this with Bob. So we apparently know everything you need to know about shared links. Granting product access. Okay, so I think we're good. Continue. Now for my least favorite part of the time. Drum roll.
Here we go.
I hate that you guys made me do public testing. All right.
It's the only way you will learn, Alex.
Uh,
No shortcuts.
you went to invite users to invite Ronaldo and you selected the user product role for a single product only. Immediately afterwards, you saw that Ronaldo was granted the user role in 2 products. Okay. What caused this? Approved domains. So, okay, so let me understand this question. So you went to invite users to invite Ronaldo and you selected the user product role for a single product. So we went to Jira Software. We gave, Jira Software there.
Yep.
Immediately afterwards, you saw that Ronaldo was granted to the user role in 2 products. Okay, so I think I know why this happened, but I don't think it was the approved domain thing. Maybe it's possible. We'll leave that as a maybe. I don't think that the user invites would have done this because I I think this is still product specific, so I don't think it was that, and I don't think it was the invitation link because we don't say anything that.
I'm gonna say it's definitely not invitation links. You
Yeah,
can
so
cross that one
definitely
off.
not this one.
Invitation links cover a single access to a single product.
Yeah, this I don't think this is even a thing because there was. I think this is like what do they call it? Those red herrings or something? Just something that throw you off because
Mhm.
I don't think your subscription has anything to do with that. Managed accounts, maybe, but I don't think in this case because managed accounts you usually don't have to invite somebody. That's why it's a managed account. So I would probably eliminate this as well. Product access groups. I'm leaning towards this. I'm leaning towards this, but the only part that I'm confused though would be well, how in the world would they know, right? Like how if I pop them into a user, that group, unless that group is configured the way about what you were saying, where you can accidentally
Mhm.
configure so that that group can be in two products, that could work. But I'm between A and F right now, and so let me see if I can narrow this down a little bit more, right? So the approved domains, my understanding. So if I get an invite, right, I feel like it's possible that I'm given, but I don't know. I feel like the approved domain has to be at the. I haven't done this to know the answer, right? But here's what I'm thinking. So when you click on that invite, right, and you only gave them a single product, even if they're in an approved domain, I don't think that it's smart enough to say, well, you got invited to this product, but because you're in an approved domain, I'm automatically going to give you everything else. Like, I don't think it's that smart. It could be. That's why I'm leaning towards option A. I just haven't tried it. Like, I can see this being feasible, right? I can see it. Again, I just haven't done it in practice. But I want to go with F. I want to say that somehow the group that is the default for this product is also misconfigured, in my opinion, misconfigured and setting you for a different one. So I'm gonna go with F, even though I'm 50-50 with A. Should we hit the button? See if I'm right
Hit
or
the
wrong?
button. I have my
I'm
answer locked
right. Oh, okay. So let's
in. All
find
right.
out why I'm wrong about approved domains. So the approved
Well,
domains. Go ahead.
actually, let me kind of preference my thinking on this. This is a root cause type of thing. It if you have this, if you have the product access groups set up where it allows um, a role a group is specified for multiple roles, any one of those mentioned above could actually trigger that thing. But it but it's not specified in the question. The question is through a specific uh
Product.
well, not through a specific product, a specific method, right? So all the ones that don't apply to that method could automatically
Be eliminated.
be eliminated, but definitely product access groups would be a root cause.
So why was A wrong? Because I was leaning more towards A. So
All
the
right.
approved domain setting can be configured to grant user product roles to multiple products without admin approval. But this setting would only be relevant if Ronaldo was accessing the site directly via a product URL, for example. But Ronaldo is being added by the org admin using the invite users feature. So he will only get added to that single product only, not the two. Okay, I see. So if somebody gave him like the URL to their Jira because they're an approved domain and they didn't exist before, they're going to be added and granted to everything.
Yeah.
But because they're being explicitly invited, right,
Mhm.
that need not apply. And
Yes.
so it's only going to be if the groups are misconfigured, which I still like using the word misconfigured because, like Bob said, right, I wouldn't. It's not a good practice to put your Confluence users to be both Confluence and Jira. That's not a good idea. Okay. Whew. I only need a 62%, right?
62%. That's
All right.
just a skosh above half the answers right.
Yeah. So Michael is an org. I mean, if you think I've been doing this for this long, Michael is an org admin who needs to maintain a very strict control over the number of product licenses in his organization. See, it is true. Which two actions will give him stricter control? Choose two. So this is, folks, this is really important. It's a test taking tip. You must choose two. There is no partial credit. We confirmed this with Atlassian this week. If you only pick one and you just, you have I don't want to offend anybody, but back in the day, you used to say you had a blonde moment, right? But if you skip, if you for some reason you're in the heat of the test, right? You skip it and you only give one, well, you're gonna get the whole question wrong. So make
Right.
sure it tells you choose two. Choose two. In lighter
And
news, Atlassian is working to minimize these kind of questions where they ask you for two or three. So that's
uh,
good news.
I will actually tell you that on when I took the 520, I did not find any
Choose
choose
twos.
multiply.
All right.
Yeah,
So
they were all choose
they're
the same.
getting better. All right. So let's see. Choose two actions, right? So removing the default groups from product access. That I don't think is a good. I don't even think it's possible because you must always have a
You
default group.
always have to have at least one.
So that's
So
wrong.
yeah,
Remove the user product role. That's possible. I'm going to check it. It's possible, right? Removing the user from the product role is going to mean that they're not going to have access to that. They're not going to. You're not going to bump up your license. Setting the invite permission to invite anyone. This is like the opposite of what you're trying to do. So that is
right.
wrong. Requiring admin approval. This is also a possibility, right? It kind of almost grants the license, but you still have to do one more check. Enabling invitation links. Nope, because we know that that will bypass. And using the invite users feature. Um, well, obviously, this means that you're explicitly inviting somebody. So that I mean, you have control, but I don't think that that's the right context. So I want to go with B and D. Let's see if I'm right. Uh-oh. I got
Uh-oh.
one wrong.
Half.
Not quite. Half right, which means I got it all wrong. So why is B incorrect? B, it's not possible to remove the user product role itself from any product. Oh, you know what? So the way I read that, right? So again, it's good test taking tips.
Yeah.
I read it as don't select the user role and put none, which would yield the same thing. But the devil's in the detail, folks.
Right.
The devil's in the details. Learn how to read and don't make assumptions. There's a classic example of when I read B, I literally saw the drop down, I saw the user, and I saw the none. Oops, not in here. Over here, here, here. I saw the user and none, and I'm like, well, if you put none, guess what? You're not consuming a license. You have control. But that is not the way this question was worded. So that's why I got that one wrong. But why is F correct, right? Because I know F
F is implicit, right?
is available or is only available to org admins, and so they can control exactly. I guess. All right, let's take it again. I want to get it all right. This one and this one. Yay! All right,
Yay.
cool. So let's move on. So that was one. Wow, that takes a whole hour. We got to power through, folks.
Yep.
All right.
We'll catch up some time on 1.4.
All right. 1.4.
1.4 is
Managing
pretty
user
easy.
access. Approve
All
or
right.
deny product access. Go ahead, Bob. What do you want to
So,
say?
just to kind of preface this, we talked about how we can invite users, right? And on some of those, on some of those ways that we add users and allow them access, we've made sure to hit the check mark of require admin approval. This is the other side of that coin. When somebody has come in, all right, and Alex gets that notification and he's okay with letting them in, how does he do that exact admin approval? That's all that section 1.4 is all about.
All right. Well, let's take a deeper look. All right. So manage users. Understand when users request access. Product access requests must be made by user with a verified email address and an Atlassian account. You can approve or deny these requests on the access request page. And users can only use this feature to access your site if you choose to approve them. Understand that when you grant a user access to a product, they're added to the default group for that product, which we talked about, which may be the default group for other products as well, which we've also talked about. And the billing starts for that new user. You know what I've always wondered, Bob? Like, do you have the ability? Does Atlassian care? Do they know? Like, if I turn somebody on for like a month, and maybe I turn them on only for like 17 days and I turn them off 17 days later, did I get billed for them?
I would think that they do, but
How though? Like, if I turn them on like 2 days into my billing cycle and I turn them off like 5 days before my billing cycle, You got to try it. You got to try it.
I'm not going to try it. The licenses I deal with are
You're like,
client
I've sworn an
licenses.
oath to protect. All, as an Atlassian shareholder, I don't have any Atlassian stock though, so I think I can try
I
it.
have plenty of Atlassian stock. I bought it right when they, right, a little bit after after the IPO. I've held on to it tenaciously.
When you deny a user access to a product, you send them a short message explaining why. Definitely. Do you know how many people have asked to join my Jira, like through my videos? It's super annoying. Thankfully, I have them all blocked. A user who has requested access and been denied won't be able to request. This is interesting. This
That's an important point. That is actually an important point.
Very, very important point, but a very, very annoying one. So what happens here? Do you have to then explicitly invite them?
You have to explicitly invite them.
Okay, that's what I thought, because I've been on these situations where like I get a request, and I'm like, nope, and then new information comes to light, and I'm like
they were the CEO.
Yeah, like All right, so let's talk about these items here. Let's go through this section here. So approve or deny product access requests. Product access requests must be made by a user with a verified email address and an Atlassian account. You can approve or deny these requests from the access request page. I always have a hard time getting to this page, and I find that the best way to get to this page is to click on the email that says approve, and then it takes you to the right page, because I can never find this damn page. So I think you might have explained it right, but I want to add a little bit more color. So when you have I don't even know how to articulate this correctly. I'm trying to figure out what causes this to happen. Like sometimes I don't know how it happens. I'll have to come back. Maybe the answer will come to me. But I'm in a situation where I get an email, right? Somebody somehow stumbled onto my Jira, right? They know my URL because obviously I make videos, right? And when you go to a Jira that it's not your Jira, right? Where it's not yours, it's not something you have a license for or have access to. Atlassian will conveniently give you something like this. It kind of almost looks like this little icon here, right? And it says request access. And then there's like a little message box on the right-hand side where you're like, hey, I'm the CEO, knock, knock, right?
Yeah.
And so your admin's going to get that email. They're going to get that request. And so that's what's triggering. You know what I answered? I knew I was going to answer this question myself. Right? So that triggers this approve or deny these requests, right? And so I think this is a little bit more independent from everything we talked about before, but it complements everything we've talked about, right? Because this is obviously a user who, for whatever reason, your approved domains and all that other stuff that we talked about in the previous section here, they're configured in such a way that this user would be locked out, which is, I think, a good thing, right? I think from a Jira admin, from a security perspective, from a billing perspective, I think you want more of these situations. I know it's a little bit more inconvenient, but again, it goes back to that control, right? Like now you get to vet the user as opposed to just a blanket accept. So anyways, they're knocking, they can't get in. Your settings don't allow them to get in. You then get a list of these people trying to get access to it. Now I kind of wish I hadn't deleted the ones from all the people that request for my main YouTube. So then we use it as an example, because I'm not gonna see anything here, right? So Bob, maybe you can go to my
give me a
maybe you can go to AC here. I'll put this in the chat here. Well, where should I send it to you? You can go look at it.
Private channel.
What?
Private chat.
Private chat. Is there a private chat in here?
Yeah.
Private chat. Here we go. So click on that. And then request access. Okay. So while he's pulling that up, I'll keep going through this documentation here. Whoop, where you go? Okay. So you're gonna go to this again, to this product section. Again, I always have a really hard time finding it. I think it's always a lot easier to wait for the email to come in. But you can go to this product section, and on the left-hand side, you're gonna see the URL and then access requests or something like that. And then we'll be able to go into approve. So let's just jump into it, and we can approve it and we can deny it. And then we'll keep going off of this. So in the administration, I'm going to close out of here. We're going into products, and we're in products. And see, this is where I can never find it. What does this documentation say? To approve, click approve now. See, there's no approve now. Anybody see it? Because I know it's not just me. I don't see it. It's not in here. It's not just me, right? Like it's literally not in here. Great case for when Atlassian's documentation doesn't match the. Did you send the request in, Bob?
Here's the funny thing. You've allowed things up on. I think you have approved domains set up where
Didn't you just
I'm
turn it off?
automatically getting in. So I'm trying to find an Atlassian account that would not do that.
I thought I had none for everything. Oh, I had the customer. Let me turn them all off.
Yeah, do that.
What's your Bob at kingbob.com email?
I don't own that domain. All right. Is it off?
Yeah, it's all off.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find. I think I might be able to pull up the ones that somebody had asked me for earlier that I always delete. Deleted emails. Folks, stand by. Cue in elevator music. Okay. I'm going over here, of course. Hold up. Stand by. I need to switch accounts. See if it's still there. Nope, it's definitely not there anymore. Well, maybe. Let's see. No, try it again.
Okay. Yeah, it's fine. I found an account that doesn't have access.
Okay. But see, this is still the okay. Oh. I have to click on the product and then I get the access request. Maybe if I read the English correctly. That's what this says here. Select. This needs to be in bold. I skipped over this section. Okay. So let me switch back accounts because man, now I'm just playing with these accounts, man. The joys of being a Jira admin. Okay. So let me see if I get an email from Uncle Bob here, which I haven't, but it's okay. Now I know where to find it. So I'm going to click on ACP-520 and I'm going to go to access requests and see if it pops up. It's not popping up. But anyways, in here, let's see if it'll eventually pop up.
Yeah, it's just flat out saying I don't have access, and it's not letting me
let it put a message. Yeah. So visualize this, folks. It'll say the person's name, like who needs access, who requested it, right? Because sometimes you can raise this request on behalf of somebody else. And then it'll tell you the product that they're trying to access. And then here in the actions is where it'll say approve, or it'll have like the 3 dots, like this UI says. It'll have the 3 dots, and then you can deny. I wish Atlassian had like a picture in here, but just know that my favorite way of getting here again is via the email. You are going to get an email notification every time that this happens. And just know that you can either approve it, which means they're going to get whatever access you give them there, or you can deny it. And once you deny it, they can't ever do that again, right? So
Right.
Bob is not able to submit the request again. If you ever, like if there's a change of heart or whatever, you will now need to essentially go to products and invite them. Directory and invite them, right? So that's the only way to do that after if you deny their access. Now, when a user lands on a product they don't have access to, they'll see the message, right? We just explain all this so they'll be able to, add and stuff like that. So that's good there. All right, moving on. Control how users get access to products. I feel like we talked about all this.
We've talked about this.
So we are good to go here. Nothing new there. This is all the same thing as well. So nothing new there. And I think that's pretty much it then.
Yeah.
Yep. So let's just go through the exam here. That only took 15 minutes. Okay. Locating requests. So yeah, you have to click on products, then click. This is important. Click on your site. And then once you're on your site, you will see the access request. You'll have a nice little bubble here. Oh, here's a picture of what it looks like, folks. It'll be the person who's requesting, right? So you'll be able to see that information. You'll be able to see who's doing the request. And most of the time, like 9 times out of 10, I see it like this, where it's the the same person over here, right?
Mhm.
Every once in a while, you'll see somebody else that did the request on behalf of somebody else. You'll see what they're trying to, you'll see the product they're trying to access, and then you'll have the ability to approve it or reject it. And that's it. Two requests for the same product, different users. For example, John requested access for Tiffany for both Confluence and Jira software, so that's possible. I do believe you may have to go one by one. I think they're individual line items.
Yeah.
Two requests by the same user for different products. Again, so Derek requests access for himself. That's possible. And then multiple requests by the same person for different people to the same time. So this is like an admin, like an OA submitting a bunch of requests for a bunch of different people. So that's what all that is there. Actioning request. So if you approve it, right? When you approve it, the user gains access to the product that was requested through that product's default access group. So that means that if I do hit the approve button over here, they're going to be put into like the Confluence users group, if that's the default one, as an example. If I deny it, womp, womp, womp. Where's Rodney with his sound effects? If you deny it, then nothing happens, right? They're gone and they can't ever re-request. You have to explicitly add them. And the request for more info, this is interesting. I've never done this ever, but you can basically send them an email and go, why?
Are you really the CEO of?
Yeah. All right. Let's see how we fare on this one. There's only there's two questions for just
There's always two per section. So
all right. You see one access request on the Acme site. Roman requested that Annie receives access to Jira software. Which two statements are definitely true?
And choose two.
Yeah. Roman is an existing user of Acme. This is possible because I feel like they need to be in there. Roman is a Jira admin. Probably not, because if they're requesting if they're raising the request, they could have done it themselves. So not this. Roman has an Atlassian account. Most likely, some maybe, right? Maybe. Annie is a new user on Acme. Maybe. Annie has a verified email address. I don't think that that's relevant. Annie has an Atlassian account, and I don't think that that's relevant either. So we have three, and it should be two. Oh boy.
One of these things is more true than the others.
One of these is not. So Roman is an existing user on Acme. Roman has. I've never see. This is the part where like I'm spoiled as being the site or org admin for everything because I never see this from the end user's perspective.
Mhm.
And this was definitely not in the documentation. Roman is an existing user. I feel like you have to like. I feel like this is Ferrari, right? Like I feel like you need to be in the club to invite others to the club. I don't feel like Jira would let some random stranger off the street say, "Hey, my buddy needs access." Like, right? Like I feel like you have to be inside to bring somebody else in. So I'm gonna keep A.
Okay.
Now, does Roman have an Atlassian account? I think this is a like duh, right?
Right.
Like
I mean,
he
it's
has to?
table stakes, right?
Yeah, like how else are you using Jira?
Right.
If not? And then now this is the weird one, right? Like Annie is a new user on Acme. Maybe.
So what if Annie were an existing Confluence user, but now needed
Yeah, so that's where my head was going, right? Like, so my thought was like, okay, so maybe she has access to something already in Jira, or sorry, yeah, like
well, actually
Confluence, you
not
could
in
say.
Jira.
Yeah, not in
Different
Jira.
product.
Yeah, Confluence. Yeah, so yeah, we can't. This is not true then. So let's go with A and C. Hey, we got it. All right. You're looking at a list of access requests in the admin tab. Identify two possible requests that you might see. Leia wants to access a product. Yes. Leia wants product admin privileges. No. Leia wants to become an org admin. No. Leia wants access to another site. Maybe. Leia wants global permission. No. Leia wants her colleague to have product access. Yes. That was easy. A and F. Ooh. I'm going to pass this test.
Yes, you are.
And then I'm going to fail it. All right. Folks, that only took 19 minutes. World record. All right. We might actually be able to finish this
All right.
before breakfast.
So, I kind of figured that you are going to wax poetic about this section because this is all about billing. So I'm sure we're gonna get unfiltered Alex here. So I can't wait.
Get your popcorn,
I'm
folks,
probably gonna go out, grab a
as we have
coffee.
0 people watching us, but in the replay, get your popcorn. Okay. Manage product subscriptions and billing. Understand how to view, switch, and cancel product subscription plans.
Mhm.
Understand how billable users are calculated, and understand how to manage your bill. Holy moly, this might take us 40 minutes.
And you doubted me.
All right. So, free, standard, premium, enterprise. When you get a new Jira, you can get a standard. You can get a 14-day standard trial. You can get a 30-day premium trial, or you can just stay on free.
Right.
As long as you have 10 or less users or 3 or less agents in Jira ASM. So you can toggle though between all of these, other than enterprise, because enterprise requires an act of God.
Yes, actually, act of God being that you actually have to send in a support request.
Right, you got to call
Because-
somebody.
Well, because enterprise is billed annually.
It is, but you can do premium manually too, no?
Well, you can do
Without-
any of you can do
Any of these-
standard, premium, or standard or premium also on an annual basis. But by default, enterprise is annual only. You cannot do monthly enterprise plans. You have to be on an annual plan.
Yep. All right. So your company is billed for products based on their product plans, billing frequency, and the number of users within that product. And so this goes back to our what happens if I turn somebody on for 10 days and turn them off? That I get billed for them. With free, standard, or premium, and enterprise, most Atlassian products, including Jira product. Okay. Oh, I can't even read. We offer. See, this is during the test. Don't skip words. With free, standard, or we offer are two different meanings to the sentence.
Commas, they might be important.
Sometimes. Products with an enterprise plan are billed at the organization level, which means you won't find them in your billing account or site. Also, fun little fact, sometimes I think this improved billing experience is coming out, but if you are an enterprise customer and you are under a managed service provider, is release team considered like a C prime?
Well, yeah, we're considered a service partner, and yes, we do have clients where we manage their
Their
licenses.
billing? Okay.
Yeah.
So if they do that, right? If you as a company, like let's just say that ApeTech hires, release team to manage my team of one, you lose some access, you lose some visibility to your
Yeah.
billing. So keep that in
We
mind.
do.
That partner that you partner up with, they have more insight, but you lose some of the stuff that you're going to see here. So if you're an admin and you're an enterprise, you may want to really pay attention to this section, because this might not all be something that you're privy to, because again, you lose some of this billing stuff if you're an enterprise admin. So this is, I freaking hate this. So there's going to be 2. So make sure you follow what's in here. When you buy the course, make sure you follow the UI or the examples here, because there's an old one and a new one. And in my particular case, there's the old one, and the new one. I'm literally juggling between 3 different UIs. So pain in the butt. All right.
You won't get questions on the UI per se. You're gonna get.
I know, but that site billing, right? Joanna and I went at it because in the old one, it's exactly what I told you. By the way, folks, to catch you up, at the end of the second part, Bob and I got a question wrong, and I argued that it was correct. And so naturally, I went and talked to the makers of the test. And I was like, why did I get this wrong? And so it turns out, I don't know where they explicitly call this out at. Like, I don't know where it's like, I'd have this in big flashing lights, but in big flashing lights somewhere, it says, or you have to assume that the middle UI is the one that that is on the test. Because there's as of right now, there's 3 flavors of the admin.atlassian.com. There's the OG, right? What I'll call the OG, which is
where they had distinct org admins and site admins, and they're kind of blurring the lines with
They
the
are.
newer
Yeah.
UIs.
But that's the OG one. Then they have the one that most people are on today, which is you have a site admin, and that's it. And then you have the new one that's rolling out where you don't even have the site admins and all you have is the org admin.
Right.
And the exam is on that middle one.
Site admins,
Yeah.
right?
So again, three, but they behave differently. Right. So we're going to go to billing. We're going to take a look at this billing stuff, and we're going to basically walk you through how to do this stuff here. So how to change your plan. So this is really easy, right? You literally go to billing here. You're going to pick the product that you want on, see how we're on free on all these. We're just going to click on manage over here. This takes you over to your billing page. And then you can change the plan, right? So you can literally just hit your change plan here, and you're going to be able to select which plan you want to go to. So you can go to standard or you can go to premium. Why isn't it letting me though? Maybe because I don't have a credit card?
Probably.
You need to reduce your number of tiers. What? To choose a value that, oh, no, I don't know why it's not letting me. But anyways, this is where you would do it. Hope it works for you. But you do get to pick if you want monthly or annual, and then you do start paying the new fees over here. So
Right.
um,
Now, the important thing to remember, all right, especially for exam and beyond, is when you choose to from free to one of the paid tiers to either standard or premium, you start off on the trial. You start off on a free trial. So in other words, if Alex were able to click on to standard, he would be on a
14,
14-day trial, and then billing kicks in after that 14 days
30-day trial
for
for
premium.
premium, and
Yes.
then billing kicks off.
Yes.
Actually, though, but sometimes Atlassian's like in a holiday spirit, they might give you a little bit more. I know that when I did my Confluence trial, they gave me something closer to like 45 days. That's kind of cool. Okay, but that's and then so the same thing though, right? Like if you are on a
If you're on a paid plan,
if you're on a
standard
paid
or
plan, you can
premium.
change plan, and then assuming you have less than 10 users, because the moment you go over 10 users, the free becomes oh, now it works, right? The moment you have over 10 users, you're ineligible for free.
Right.
Standard is the only way you can go. But
Right.
assuming you have 10 or less, you can move down to free, or if you're in premium, you can come down to standard. And you just will
Right.
pick
Usually if you have to go to free, you have to
get rid of people.
get rid of users before you can jump from standard or premium down to free.
Yeah. And so that's all this is saying, right? Like you just go there, you change your plan, you put in your credit card. I think you have until the end, right? So you don't I think you should keep in mind that you can very much upgrade to premium, start your free 30-day trial, and you don't need to put your credit card payment until the trial is over.
Yep.
So that's important for you to know. And yeah, so that takes care of that section.
One last thing. There is a premium feature called Sandbox, right? In premium, you can basically create a copy of your product, either a Jira product or Confluence, and use that clone as a sandbox. Be able to make changes in the configuration, test those out before trying to apply those changes back to your production instance. If you change from premium to either standard or free, that sandbox gets automatically deleted. Any premium feature like that gets automatically taken away.
Additionally, if your payment information is invalid or just maybe you have an expired credit card, your sandbox will go away if they pull you back, and they do not give you a warning. And your data, anything you were doing in that sandbox, is gone. You cannot retrieve it.
Right.
So make sure that you talk to your Jira admin or your billing person, because usually the Jira admin is not the owner of the card, at least in a company, in an enterprise, right? So
Right.
make sure you're always monitoring these things, because they can. This has personally happened to me, where I was working on Sandbox. I spent like a month doing a bunch of configurations. They didn't pay. Their credit card expired. They forgot to update the credit card details. Their production environment went down, and their Sandbox went down. They scrambled. They finally got the credit card updated. They brought production back up, but guess what? Never came back.
Sandbox
all of
got
my hard,
deleted.
all my hard work in that Sandbox, I had to start
Yep.
all over. So keep that in mind. Very, very important. But
Yep.
very, very key point that Bob made there. Also, Bob, very little, considering it's still 7:30 in the morning for me. I read all this. I'm like, when the hell did Jura get all these features? And I'm looking at Confluence. I was like, dang. Hey, version team calendars. I'm like, I didn't know Jira had calendars. And then it took me a second to realize that I had clicked on Confluence. So Ronnie would be proud.
Yes.
Okay.
So those are some of the things as far as dealing with the different levels and moving between from free to paid versions.
Yep.
And back.
Yeah. Now let's talk about billing for enterprise. So enterprise, if you're in an enterprise, folks, Atlassian loves you, first of all. And two, this is a whole different ballgame.
Yep.
When you're in enterprise. So enterprise is available for Jira Software and Confluence, and most recently JSM. I think for the longest time you couldn't get JSM Enterprise, but they're doing it now because if you, let's just say that you want a help desk and you need like HIPAA information in there, well, the only way to do HIPAA.
Actually, that's not true. They
What are
changed
you
that.
talking about?
They changed that. You could be on
When?
standard or premium.
No.
About a month or two
No.
ago.
How do you spell HIPAA?
HIPPA.
HIPPA. Did they actually open that up? Because the last
Yeah.
time the last time I looked at this was like literally February. Let's see if this one takes me. Did they actually open it up? I know it was on the roadmap for the longest time. This is
Yeah.
from so this is from January. Well, this is from
That's
January
from
of this year, right?
January.
So let's see if there's anything newer. You would think they would have put a newer. Did they open it up though? If they did, then this is like pretty big, right? See, this is enterprise. I think we got to come back to this, Bob, because
Let's come back to this. We can edit this out of the thing. This is the HIPAA compliance is not going to be part of ACP-520.
Definitely not. But from a business perspective, okay. So what we'll leave for the record here is, right, if you need HIPAA, check it out, right? Because this article that I'm showing here is from basically a year ago. Atlassian changes daily, right? But it used to be, at least as of January 2023, was that you needed to be on an enterprise version to have HIPAA, right? And JSM was not on it, and now it is. And now this is why I'm happy that JSM is offered as an enterprise, because there wasn't a whole lot of sense to be on JSM Enterprise, but now there is, right? But with enterprise comes great responsibility, though, right? It comes great problems. As Bob mentioned earlier, it requires annual billing. It also includes your Atlassian Access subscription. So your pricing is higher, but is it really? Because what happens when you're on standard and premium, you have your bills, right? The ones we just saw here, right? If you remember here, right? You'll see this bill, if this thing ever decides to load. You see this price per user, right? But what's not shown here is that if you want single sign-on, you need to take on an additional hidden fee called Atlassian Access, which is, I think, now $4 a user or something like that, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I think they bumped it up recently to $4, right? And so that's an extra cost that you got to pay on top of this. When you go enterprise, that extra $4 per user is bundled into the price already. So even though enterprise looks it's a little bit more expensive, you get two really, really key benefits that I think make it worth the price. One, you get your Atlassian Access bundled in, right? So that extra $4 per user is in the price. And two, and we kind of talked about this earlier, right? When you look at my products, if Bob needs to access both of these Jira softwares, I have to pay $16 or whatever it is now for Bob to access this one, and another $16 for Bob to access this one. So I paid 30, like $31, $32, right? Depending. It's $15 and some change, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm paying a good amount of money. So keep in mind, I'm paying 15 something for Bob to access this one, 15 something for Bob to access this one, plus $4 for him to have Atlassian access, right? Well, for enterprise, it may be that I pay $25 or $35. I'm trying to make it higher, right? It may be that I make it so I pay $35 for Bob, but Bob can now use not only this Jira and this Jira, but any other Jira software that I may have, right? And so it becomes cheaper in the long run if you have multiple sites and the same user needs to access multiple sites. So in enterprise, you can, for that specific product, Jira software or Confluence or JSM, they're not ands, but they're ors. You can hop around all the different Jiras or all the different Confluences for that one-time fee. So that's the only time, in my opinion, that it makes sense. And up to most recently, that HIPAA compliance.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for Bob.
Also, it is possible for an organization to be on enterprise and also have sites that have products on standard or premium.
Correct.
Okay.
Not, in my opinion, doesn't make sense, but possible.
It's possible. All right. There's one caveat. Those standard and premiums have to be on annual billing as well.
But it doesn't make sense. Like, why? Like, you're already paying. It's the same price.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, in fact, I think doing standard or premium probably incurs a different cost, no?
Well, yeah, because standard or premium, you're paying on a per site basis on the number of product users. So
right. So I mean, as an enterprise, if you're already on enterprise, like this doesn't make sense. Like, I don't even know why this is a feature.
Well,
and I think in the chat, Bella's pointing out, like, I think you can even have the free ones, right?
You can. Well. You can actually even be on a free plan. Thank you, Bella.
Yeah. But why?
It could be that the M&A process and kind of consolidating after a merger or acquisition is going to have to result in a situation where you may have these outlying sites, and you're going to be in a process of migrating the data from, say, a standard or a premium site or even a free site into the enterprise fold.
Well, what I did when I did my last M&A is it came in as standard, and I quickly bumped it up to premium. I mean, to enterprise, because you're gonna get the same. It's the same payment.
Mm-hmm.
Example: if so, Bella here says if you're using JSM for 10 agents and Jira software for 1,000 developers, but not really, Bella, though, because we're talking functionality at this point, not number of users. Because you can have a site for JSM that only has those 10 agents, and your Jira software can have 1,000. But it's really the functionality that you get, right? In my opinion. Does that make sense, Bob? Like you can, because I have this, right? I have like a JSM, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's on enterprise, but it has 10 users or 25 users, and then I have a different JSM that has like 600 users.
Right, and it's probably because you have a federated instance. The 10 users are using a specific plugin where you don't want to you don't want that plugin applied to those 1,000 users.
Bella says, but if you don't need the functionality at the enterprise level, right? Like, true. But as I was saying, right, like, if you so look at it this way, right? This is the way I would interpret this. If you're a company that has multiple JSMs, right? Because JSM is expensive, right? It's like for premium, you're talking like $50 something a user. And so if you have multiple JSMs and multiple people need to access all those JSMs, I would be on enterprise because I think it's cheaper. But if you have like a JSM and you only need the portal, then I would put the 20 users and be standard. It's going to be a separate line item in your bill, and you're going to have one for every site in your bill at the end of the year. But I think it's cheaper that way. The only way that having JSM standard, I mean enterprise, makes sense is if you have all the functionality, you're using assets and everything, and your users need to jump to all the JSMs. Because the way I manage it right now is I have I have Jira Software Enterprise, Confluence Enterprise, and then just JSM Standard where appropriate. And that one team that uses assets, I have them on Premium.
Yep.
All right. So I did not know that there was a limit of 150 sites though. That or instances. That's an interesting number to know.
Yeah.
I thought I have 20, and I thought I was cool, but apparently you go to 150.
you're cool, Alex. You're just not 150 sites cool.
So we talked about this. When your organization purchases an enterprise subscription, I will notice, or I will say that I just opened up a new one, or I just opened up a new site under an enterprise plan last week. And at Atlassian, it used to be that I would have to call my partner to send a request to Atlassian to bump it up to an enterprise, because by default it's like either standard or premium.
Mm-hmm.
But now automatically Atlassian, the moment I made it, Atlassian reached out to me directly and said, "Hey, we noticed you have a new site. We're bumping it up to enterprise for you." So I thought that was nice. When your organization, yeah, so you have the ability to subscribe to separate, yeah, if required. I don't know. For JSM, maybe this makes sense, but for Jira Software and Confluence, if you're an enterprise, you just got to go enterprise. I don't see why you would downgrade functionality.
Again, I'm gonna throw the flexibility in whatever the requirements require.
But why would
which is what the exam is going to be about.
I know, but it's like you walk into a buffet and you're like, I'm gonna limit myself to just this table. Even though I have access to all the tables, I just want this table. Like, why? You have all the tables.
Be aware. I'm not saying don't
do it.
Don't you don't have to eat at every table. I'm saying you have to be aware for your 3 hours, either in the testing center or on at home with an online proctor. You have to be aware of the other tables. You don't have to partake of the other tables during those 3 hours.
I know, but from a practicality perspective, you're paying $30 to enter the buffet. I'm gonna hit up each table, but that's also why I'm a little round around the edges. Maybe not the best example. Oh man, it's been a while since I've been to a buffet. All right. How does enterprise billing work? So enterprise billing is a little bit different. I do recommend the flip side, right? So earlier I said, hey, if you're an enterprise customer, you might want to really pay attention to this thing because you don't know how, you may not be privileged to how the billing works because it's kind of blinded to you. But the opposite is also true. If you're not an enterprise customer, understand how enterprise billing works, because I can trust me when I tell you, Atlassian loves their enterprise customers way more than they love their standard.
I thought it was mentioned that a lot of their customers are enterprise customers.
Yeah, no, I was surprised. Of their customers. I was surprised. I was so surprised when I heard that. Enterprise is like where, like I've heard the number I've heard is that Atlassian has like a dedicated team for all their enterprise access or all their enterprise customers. And then there's like the one person that's responsible for all the non-enterprise customers. Because it's so little compared to the number of enterprise that they have. Anyways, enterprise billing is interesting, right? I highly recommend you, because I do want to finish here in 15 minutes because I'm getting very hungry. Now that we're talking about buffet. So the enterprise billing is interesting, right? So you get like the billing here. Take a look at how this works, right? Because you are going to get billed for just the heartbeat, the individual itself. So in this case, you're paying for 8,000 users to access all of these people here. You have 10,000 users to access all these Confluences here. This is where, like, from a business perspective, if I'm cutting the bill, I'd want to know about this, because I'd be like, why? Like, why am I going to send Atlassian an extra bill for 2,000 people? Like this doesn't make sense to me. Like this I feel is like a bad use of your money. It's possible. Know that it's doable in the exam. I wouldn't do this in reality. So yeah, so as you can see here, the users. Now keep in mind that your enterprise Jira is built, it's in the same build, but it doesn't have to be the same 8,000 people that go to Confluence, right? So you have the ability to send like 8,000 people to both Jira and Confluence, and then buy an extra 2,000 just for Confluence. So you can mix and match this however you want. Know that it doesn't have to be the same amount. Also, it used to be that Atlassian required you to have the same numbers, but I don't think that's the case anymore.
No, I don't think so.
And so, yeah, the only thing you need, I would scroll through this. I think I know most of this because my day to day is literally enterprise every day. But I would give this read a heavy read here so you can fully understand um, how all these pictures work. Because again, if you're not an enterprise and this is the first time you're looking at it, um, it might be weird, right? But it makes sense. It makes sense. The only again, in my opinion, the only time that enterprise makes sense is if you have a lot of users accessing a lot of different Juras, or a lot of users accessing a lot of different Confluences. That's the only time it makes sense, in my opinion.
Right.
Because otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Like it's so expensive. How do sandboxes affect your tax bill? This is interesting. So I do want to talk about this for a second, right? So when you're an enterprise, you obviously get the sandboxes from Premium, right?
Right.
If a user only has access to a sandbox, they do not count as an enterprise user. Okay, so they will not be billed out of this number here.
Right, because sandboxes technically don't have billable licenses.
Right, but they do count as a billable user for your Atlassian access. If they're using your companydomains.com email, they will very much incur that cost. So keep that in mind. Okay. So you don't want to get an unexpected bill. The other thing that I want to talk about from a sandbox perspective, and I know this is probably not on the test. Hopefully it's not on the test, but if you buy an app in the sandbox, you will get a bill for your usage in the sandbox. However, if you buy the same app in your production environment, you're going to get the bill for your production environment, but you get the sandbox for free now.
Yes.
So keep that in mind, because some people think I'm like, oh, I can install all the apps in the sandbox. If you don't have the production counterpart, you're going to get a nice little bill.
Yeah.
Okay. And then here's again where you can kind of most people on enterprise won't see this page. I don't even know why Atlassian puts it up here, but most people will not see this particular page because you don't typically get to see how much it costs because your billing is managed through your partner. Most people.
Well, that is if well, I mean, you can always work with the Atlassian sales team to directly get an enterprise subscription. You don't have to go through a partner to get enterprise.
Right.
So,
you don't.
So
but
when that happens, the billing contact will see this.
That's why I said most, right? So, but if you're an enterprise customer, you will most likely, at least in the experience that I've seen, that you are most likely going through some partner.
Yeah.
Mainly because the partners can give you a discount that Atlassian typically doesn't give you. All right. Change tier. Each enterprise bill includes a user tier, which is the maximum number of users you can cover. You can upgrade your user tier at any time. This is very true. And I usually take care of it through my partner. This right here, I love it. I love it. I want to say, I would like to say that I am responsible for the creation of this. You want to know why, Bob?
Why?
Because I complained to Atlassian so many times that I feel like they made this feature just to shut me up. Hot take while we
I need to see the comments on the code for that one.
I know. Hot take while we end this, right? So again, I got 20 Juras and I got 4,000 licenses. You can you get a bucket of those 4,000 licenses, right? So I can send 1,000 to one Jira, 1,000 to another Jira, 1,000 to another Jira, 1,000 to another Jira, 1,000 to another Jira, right? I can do 20 jurors with 1,000 users each. And up until this user counts that I'm showing, well, was showing on my screen here came out, I had no way of knowing who those, like when I hit the 4,000 limit. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I was just, I was Oprah here. I was just giving people licenses. And Atlassian's like, hey, you got to cut it out. And I'm like, I don't know how though. Like I can't see the billing because we're managed, right? So I don't know how many users I have and I don't know where the users are allocated. All I know is that I can keep sending invites and we're good to go. And so Atlassian, after figuring out that, not that I ever went over the budget or anything, right? But I think Atlassian finally figured out, I was like, "Hey, let's just give them this user counts. And this is beautiful. I can't show it, right? But
Mm-hmm.
if you go to products in the enterprise, I think this is an enterprise only thing because I don't think I'll see it in this one that I have here, right? But if you actually maybe if you go to products, yeah, so in the enterprise, you'll see something called user count here, and it will tell you, hey, you have 4,000 licenses, you're 88% usage of those, and then you can see the breakdown of each site and how many users are in each one. So now it keeps you a little bit more honest. But I love it because now I know how I'm redistributing those 4,000 licenses. So I thought that was really, I could kiss Atlassian for this feature because for years I was struggling with like, I don't know how to do that. And then this part is annoying. Adding a product's easy. Adding a product, you just click on add product. Deleting one, holy moly, that is hard. You got to call Atlassian.
Yeah, it's probably tied to a site.
Yeah. All right. So that's the end of this article. Managing user accounts, which I kind of show you. This will do Atlassian Access Bill. So real quickly, because we only have a few minutes left here, managing your Atlassian Access Bill. This again is very, very important for you to kind of go and look at. I don't know. I think I don't want to rush through this one, so maybe we can pick it up with this next time. But billable users is a thing, a very, very important thing for you to know. It's important for you to understand what is a billable user, what's a non-billable user, how you can do different authentic or different policies so that you can send them over to not be billable. But highly recommend you take a look at all this information and really understand this. I think, Bob, again, I don't want to rush through this one, so I'd like to pick this one up here, just this section next time, and close out billing a little bit more.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then so we'll finish that up, and then I think then we'll be able to move on to the thing. So we'll stop it here, folks. And we will. I won't be able to call 1.5 complete, but I'm gonna call 1.5 complete, and I'm gonna call chapter 1 or section module 1
victory.
Complete. Yeah, I'm claiming victory. But we are definitely when we pick it up next time, we'll definitely spend an extra 20 minutes here and get the rest of 1.5 completed before we go to section 2. So that's it for this live stream. And folks, if you enjoyed this, make sure you smash the subscribe button. Make sure you check out the playlist. There's an entire playlist that we have for the ACP-520. And guess what? There will be an ACP, all the other ones coming soon, as I have to take them all eventually. And so if you like this one, let me know. Give me some feedback in the comments. How do you like this kind of interaction? We just started doing it just for fun, just to kind of help me stay accountable. But I like to know what you like. And then eventually I do plan on cutting out sections of these and, making little clips and stuff so that specific answers. So thanks, Bob, again for coming on.
Oh, of course.
Enjoy your Sunday. We'll have to do this again maybe next weekend. And we'll see how this goes.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.